Yeah, greetings. I'm gonna jump into this. Bear with me. Hold on one second. So a little better. My nostrils, a little better. Greetings. Shout out to everybody out there. Greetings. Quick little empowering messages right now. It's a source. Y'all know when I got my background that it's finna come from the hots. But it's also finna remind us to go within. My nose is much better. My sinuses is clear enough. Let's give an honor to Source, to the Creator, Most High, for making all this possible. Whatever your higher power is, ancestors known and unknown, from the highest good of all. Let me jump right into this. Let me be the first to say, on this self-discovery journey, a journey of remembrance, human experience, whatever you want to call it, the healing journey, again in itself, will reveal the very honest parts of yourself that you cannot run from, that will haunt you. I don't proclaim to have it all figured out. Shit, I have to apologize to myself sometimes when I realize, when I met, what does that elder say? When you reach the top of one mountain, you're at the bottom of another one. So it's it's a learning process. The healing journey in itself is a process that you are, constantly going through. And sometimes I feel like, bro, I'm at a clean slate in my life. I'm at a new beginning. It's funny that I'm speaking about this because we're literally about to come into, or in the process of, not just the eclipse season, but also the equinox. And right now I realize I've been so more focused for myself and everything else, mainly pertaining to my well-being more than anything else, because at a moment in my life I would be I'm talking about being overgiving and overcompensating in relationships that wasn't reciprocal. And with that, I realized that that goes for family too. That goes for friends, that goes for anybody, because I realized how much where there wasn't a giving, receive, or just a solid foundation. I realized it really geared me to shift gears towards me focusing more on myself, my well-being, which has been a huge priority in this year, which I would like to say is the fourth quarter in the moment right now where it's crunch time. But at the same moment, it's a balance, a healthy balance, because there always comes a moment, if you've ever been on this journey, or a journey of trying to realize the importance of where you stand and with yourself and with other people. For me, the biggest thing I've been learning is not allowing people to feel like they can have access, to me as much as they've done before. And being from distance and being away, man, I was bro, you can miss some toxic ass ways, or miss some even the people. That's a part of the process of elevating or evolving, and really trying to focus on what your life is reflecting, where you need to focus more, what you need to prioritize. And for me, it's the only way I know I can live a life, whether that be of emotional fulfillment, financial stability, abundance, and so forth, then it can't be the same lifestyle that I feel would have been before, with people who I know who did not prioritize that, or did not have the same belief systems or core values. So for me, it's very vital right now that I realize I've been having people reach out or trying to reconnect. In some moments, I even find myself browsing, and it's not that I don't feel led to check up on them. You ever notice how the energy is still the same, or you still see people doing the same thing? Hey, it's not to say that their life isn't great. I just realized, for me, I'm bro, I want much better out of life, I can say, or do different things. And with that, you can have people assume that, oh, you think you're better, or you think you're doing this, which is okay, because at the end of the day, that shouldn't determine how you rest, and that doesn't feed your mouth or your family or whatever it is that you do. And that comes with a lot of growth. I can even, it's funny, That's so funny. I'm looking off, and I look and see a book because I'm in the library setting, and it says family core. Fucking synchronicities be wild. But yeah, man, I've just really got to a place where within myself and realize like who's really going with me and where and how are we going to do this and what are we really building. I've had a lot of friends that so much like fall away or use autumn, like how seasons change, but I've also noticed like it's just the timing of everything. You ever heard of saying like bad timing? That is a real thing, or things where it's just not fit to just happen in that moment. And a lot of these structures I did not have growing up, like being able to know the importance of even vetting people. Like for me, I'm like, bro, if I didn't prioritize something now, that's still discipline in vetting people, because not just for my protection and for my well-being, but also, those who have like a child or children or whatever, that is important. We did not grow up in a society where it taught us to vet. We grew up in a very passive, the old world narrative that doesn't exist no more. People wanted us to believe like, oh, this old narrative, and it's as I sit back in the ground, I'm really noticing like how much we have been programmed to just be so passive towards things that are vital when it comes to our well-being, when it comes to how we show up for ourselves, how we prioritize the things that are more, have more substance and value for longevity. And that's important when you are dealing with what type of friendships, what your inner circle is, and what even you prioritize. Like I said, it ain't about professionalism. It's perfectionism, but it's more solely about morality and principles. Sometimes I feel the urge to be like, oh man, I wish I could be there with such and such, and we do this and do that. One thing I've learned, I realized that I've been restoring and recovering within myself, and even through the fact of learning this life or learning through life, there's a balance between having fun and then responsibility. And being that I grew up, again, that floor plan aspect that I like to use, the foundations, I grew up around people who were very irresponsible. And that's on different levels. Like, I did see people that were responsible, but I feel like that was not that wasn't priority. It wasn't prioritized enough when it comes to the well-being and also the physical structure. So we can find ourselves, I know for me, not having shame and guilt around like, fuck, whoa, not just coming into your own home or going home and doing certain things or building that. There's a responsibility around that. There's a responsibility even in surrounding yourself with people who even hold that as a value, as something that's a priority, which is prioritizing responsibility for their well-being, for their emotional stability, for their physical well-being, because it all connects to each other. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, I'm grateful enough to even come into this awareness and see the divine timing and everything. And that doesn't mean you still don't love or cherish and honor people. I've had encounters recently where I've talked about things here, and immediately like I've noticed that energy resurface through a person or somebody reaches out due to the fact of them not hearing from me. And I'm like, in all honesty, I know that people haven't watched me via YouTube or even know. It's not that they know how to connect to. Well, yeah, they can. It's easily to like how my life has shifted. And I've said this years ago, is more so like people will be able to see me, but they won't be able to touch me or like have that physical access. You'll be able to see me visually, digitally, and so forth. But that's because that's something where the topic at hand is very important. Is the importance where we don't how you have to get it, where you get to a place where you realize that healing also involves healing from people. Let me say that again. Healing also involves healing from people, and that can be not just from child development, from the foundations of childhood wounds, but adult wounds. Adult traumas, childhood traumas as well. Like these things, like I'm realizing, I'm like, oh shit, like bro, I dealt with this with my mom and then into my adulthood. So the distance with that allows me to be able to see the inner wounds. So I'm like, I have to allow myself, with all honesty, with integrity, no matter how my life can look fucked up to someone else, or them assume that, oh, he's going through this. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Because you know what's so true? I'm being honest with myself. I realize I don't need to be around this person right now. We don't have that many honest conversations where we see our youth who, I have to look up that syndrome where it's like you cling to the abuser. Matter of fact, let me look that up. You cling to abuser. I knew it was Stockholm. So, okay, Stockholm Syndrome is a coping mechanism to a captive or abusive situation. People develop positive towards their captors or abuser over time. Let me tell you why this shit is so vital right now. Some of y'all, like, I bring this to y'all attention because I have to shatter my own illusion of what I accepted or even learned behavior patterns growing up to realize, like, yo, I dealt with this. I most likely repeated this or reenacted this, and even I can honestly say I dealt with this from people, and even in relationships, whether it was on a give or receive, or some may say give and take. When you look at this, I can relate this on so many levels, from childhood, adulthood, and even the fact of society. Where again, learning to feel safe again and healing and acknowledging things will realize, like, bro, you develop a learned behavior pattern, and if you want to give it a title, it can be used as Stockholm. And the reason why this is so vital, you look here, it says Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response in which a victim develops positive feelings like attachment, which can be unhealthy attachment eventually, trust and sympathy towards their captor or abuser, while stimulously, did I say that correctly? Stimulously, I feel like I said it correctly. Y'all gotta bear with me, man. Sometimes the two can get in the way, or just I get tongue tied. Develop negative feelings towards authorities or anyone trying to help them escape. Other symptoms can include confusion, embarrassment. Feeling towards authority. Yo, that's wild. Other symptoms can include confusion, embarrassment, guilt, difficulty trusting others, anxiety, depression, and symptoms of post-traumatic stress, PTSD, such as flashbacks and nightmares. This response is survival instinct, helping victims cope with a harrowing and dangerous situation. So it's so funny, like, bro, when I really look at this, I'm sitting here like, how did I not develop this as a childhood with a mother and a grandmother? Because it's like, for instance, I'll give you an example. How certain demographics will normalize abuse, correct? And call it discipline. And then you're taught even to be small or be silent on issues at hand that need to be talked about and discussed, that are brushed up under the rug and so forth. And it's so funny. Well, no, I don't get off subject with it. Let me stay on this because it just relates to, like, even the matriarchal, how certain grandmothers were like mediators. But anywho, it was like, looking at this, negative feelings towards authorities. Victim may feel distrust, anger, or resentment towards police, or even anyone trying to rescue them. Wow. Yo, this is deep as fuck, because it's like, I would see my mom go through this. How her emotions or even feelings, certain demographics, how they even have towards authority. But even more so, when I'm saying that, it's like how I would see her go through being beaten or abused. And it's funny how these memories come up when I'm talking about this. How she will go through that, and then when the police get there, like, literally switch into a whole nother protective of the from being a victim to trying to protect the abuser or the man that beat her, and then have all this, like, anger and frustration towards the authority figure, like the police. Yo, this shit is wild. Y'all don't realize, like, sometimes when I get on here, I be having intentions to talk about what you're healing from, but that's still also a process of acknowledging those repressed memories or emotions towards the whole situation. Again, a lot of trauma, when it comes to passive aggressive things or things that are repressed, it has a lot to do with unprocessed emotions, unprocessed events. So the importance of healing from said situations has a lot to do with me even recognizing overstaying my welcome in a connection. A lot of us develop learned behavior patterns when we were young with overstaying because we didn't have nowhere to go. That was one of my biggest things, where I feel like a lot of trauma that I looped through at that moment, it felt like there was nowhere else to go, or how else could I have built on anything healthy, because I've never seen it. I didn't know what else to do. It was like a child in a what does they call it, like freeze states, stagnant or stuck. And being that you never seen it like consistently, or even seen men or somebody step away and actually build their life, it's something that I've had to navigate and still go through, in a sense of like prioritizing the well-being and being honest with the fact of how you have to learn to walk away. And we're not shown that, or being that we haven't been shown that young, we see more consistency of the dysfunctionality, and how you would see a person go through said abuse, develop, let's say, a term, Stockholm syndrome, or symptoms around it, and then allow this loop of seeing women and men who are unaware of this repeat certain cycles or reenact similar behaviors from a learned behavior or intergenerational pattern, and have people come back from an abusive relationship, or see a man come right back. And then you'll see, from a woman's perspective, have that man come back, from my experience, see a mother like go through that, and then allow the man to come back and never see her healthily leave something or stay away. I'm talking about 20 plus years of seeing her reenact that, to where when I say healing from people, it's like when you're away from people, these memories suppress, repress, things come up, whether you're in a relationship or not, and you have these things will haunt you even when you're with yourself in solitude, or you're with someone else, to where you don't even you're unconsciously aware of that you are reenacting when, let's say, combative or argument or something is triggered, and we're not even aware how much we have suppressed over the years through seeing our mothers and fathers repress these very guilts, these very symptoms, or all these things here, because they don't even know or recognize that these are symptoms or learned behavior patterns. So from a woman's perspective, how I've seen from a child looking, again, you would see her go through patterns in certain demographics of going through this with a man, knowing that she feels that's all she's had or worthy of, and then allow that man to come in knowing that he hasn't changed. The duration from that is not a year or 2 years where someone goes and focuses on themselves. No, in demographics, I've seen people naturally, not even hours, days, and so forth. And I learned that behavior from experiencing in relationships, and then that's when I had to get to a place where, like, confidently within myself, to realize, like, yo, I have to speak about the fact of who is going to be able to heal, but be able to also keep away those very energies and people, or even cycles that want to come in a, it's not to say people haven't changed or people haven't done the inner work. It's also the well-being and the value and worth of knowing that the possibility of even wanting to deal with that person ever again, or it's something that they've done. What's the word I'm looking for? Can they come back from it? What is it? Some things that you just cannot, like aren't forgiving, what some people say. Like there's no coming back from a lot of things. But again, that's to each their own. That's what other people, how they want to live their life. And again, seeing it from a woman's perspective, I've seen behavior patterns like that consistently, and it looks different, but the energy is the same. I was seeing it play out through my mom with her behavior patterns with her men. Different faces, similar energy, because she never went away. That's wild? She never went away or never healed. And so from a little boy's perspective, we still develop this pattern subconsciously, believing like either that's how I'm supposed to be treated as a man, or this is how women are supposed to be. And we take on that narrative, whether we know sometimes like we don't post it, like be treated that way. Again, what was the toughest thing for me, like I can acknowledge and I'm not ashamed of, is what I'm doing now is the part of being able to, as I'm facing the healing, it's also healing from the people, and not putting a timeline, or a certain duration on if I'm wanting to reconnect, or even if that's an option. Because with that distance, depending on how many years that you have dealt with people, the cutoff is permanent. And that's where a lot of, on the other side of the spectrum, people can feel rageful or revengeful or whatever, however you dealt with that person, or whether it's a family member or so forth. No, that's where the boundaries have to come in, and that's where the boundaries have to stay. And so with that, it's not talked about enough how we have to realize, like, you're not just healing from you generationally, like, healing with you're healing generation cycles that could look like the fact of setting boundaries and instilling those boundaries for the generations after you. That's how vital this is. That's how important this is. And so your kids, I'm realizing, so my children can see that it's okay to step away from things and stay away if you have to, for the betterment of your well-being and for all involved. Because that's how some of us have to be a guiding light. And with that stepping away and staying away and going more and focus on our well-being, there will be people who, again, out of your control, have the opportunity to do the same as you've done. You see how that ripple effect, it initiates a cycle or initiate a pattern. Your mindset and your change in behavior will have an effect on everyone. Therefore, it can trigger that mother, that father, that someone who has the opportunity to look in the mirror and also be able to see their role and what has affected you. And if the inability to do that, they will just create more suffering, which is the mental illness and mental disorder around what they've created within themselves. And they can either stay and create more of that, which still would affect everyone around them. And that's what a lot of people are afraid to do. So that's where the pride, the difference between the pride that people hide behind, rather than the person who's more courageous to step away and break generational cycles and chains. And so for me, I'm realizing, again, I'm able to recognize, like, even these symptoms. I can say behavior, like the behavior patterns, I don't know where I'm gonna sneeze, cough, or what. I can say it again, I've had, because I've seen it. Now, from a man's wing, depending on if he has a mother wound, please tell me I got some water. A lot of men, this is going to be huge. I didn't ever think I would say this, but one of my greatest fears was to step into my independence. I didn't even know why, but now I realize now, even more so by being more independent, a lot of it had to do with the fact of I've never seen other men, in my life that took not so much pride, but took courage in it, took confidence in that growing up. And then I was like, oh gosh, I realized, like, it's on me. It's on me. And with that, the consistency and persistence, the integrity, the confidence it takes to do that, there are people, let's say, due to the fact of how they naturalize or normalize dysfunction, I realized why support wasn't there. I realized why I had the tools necessarily to build that brick by brick, and so forth, because I feel like they knew it. And this is where, you notice people who I talked about financial abuse, emotional abuse, and so forth. The things I didn't know until later years, why certain people breadcrumb me, or why certain people will almost like pull the rug out. And then in any way, they didn't know like that by doing that, it was only enabling me or initiating me or catapulting me like a catalyst for me coming into my own, like reconnecting to my interdependence and realizing like how independent I can be in a more healthier way, rather than, again, that fear was the codependency, which was rooted in the mother wound of being attached to situations, circumstances, and people in so much of an unhealthy way, to where having those rose tinted glasses, or not being able to see beyond the fact of I can do this for myself. And I realized, like, in doing it for me, I'm not discarding the fact of who supported, because whether they were aware of it or not, I still had to have the courage to step into my own power, or take back my power, whether it was from a person who wasn't aware of what they were doing and only using the tools that they knew they had, whether it be a disciplinary action or verbal, this is where a lot of grace came in for myself and for those people. So for me, I was like, whoa, I see that a part of my coming into my independence had a lot to do with letting go of codependency, the attachment to that. And that's why I realized I started to recognize certain women in my family, certain people who would be like, also like, I'm using the term monitoring spirits, or watching, because of this idea of me that who I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be to them. And through that lens, that could have been completely different. And if you're talking about trauma bonds and unhealthy attachments, their lens from that will now look healthy. Their lens will be this idea from a wounded place, whether it's a father wound or a mother wound, and they don't even realize the unhealthy attachment they have and the inability to keep them from actually facing themselves, their mother wounds, their father wounds, to actually develop a more healthy and honest relationship with them. But being that you have people years and years and years from childhood and so forth, or even in the wombs of our mothers, who have had these attachments so very young, that's the only foundation that they know. And those foundations keep them looping through dysfunctionality, discomfort, dis-ease, chaos, disharmony. And I had to sit back and observe. I'm like, wow, this is really taking back my power. But that person or that environment will have me believe that, no, that's not empowering for you to step into your own power. They want to disempower that. They want to, it's the opposite. Do you see the like mental illness in that? For people to, like, when you see on the screen, normalize this, these behaviors, and literally believe that this is a healthy foundation for them and all around them. And so with that, from a man's perspective, I was like, from a childhood, I'm like, whoa, this is why I did not prioritize a well-being, like my well-being, like emotionally, mentally, and so forth, and then not realizing how that was there was consequences behind that, how that would affect my physical stability and so forth, how that would affect my finances, all those very things. And so now, with that, again, cutting people off or cutting cords or stepping away from things, this has allowed me to see more of myself, and then see the impact and the effect it will have on not only me, but the people, and how I chose to use that negative, that feminine wounded aspect, and to create more of a healthy masculine approach. Not a wounded masculine, but to navigate from that wounded masculinity being operated from a wounded feminine, the energies, to now using that, wounded aspect of the feminine, and to be able to see it more healthily. And then now I get to operate through that in a more healthier way, masculine. And so this is what we're dealing with energetically when I'm like, whoa. I have to be able to now see, observe and realize like, okay, this is this person's character. Okay, what was my role in enabling this? And so when I'm saying healing from those very people, it's as you heal from yourself, you'll be able to see clearly who and what is for you, how to navigate it, the discernment in what's a liability for what you are creating in your life. And what does that say? What does that look like? If I'm building an image and a brand around more of a holistic approach, more of an honest approach, and so forth, why the fuck would I be surrounded around people that's the opposite of that? Why would I even be in a circle or an environment when I know that this isn't more so of a priority, or people who will be looking at me, which I cannot control, with more so of an evil eye or jealousy because of the fact of to them, from their lens, they're not able to see themselves healthily, so they're going to see me or other people around me as a threat or competition, or basically ego, wounded ego aspect, or from a wounded lens. So that's the beauty of, again, as I had to recognize both matriarchal and patriarchally, from whether it was friends, associates, business partners, and so forth. How these people can still be well off, successful, and so forth. It's still, I have to be discerning on their internalized dialogue. How do they really feel about men? How do they really feel about themselves? Men in certain powers, or, status and so forth. How do they really feel about themselves? That's very important to me, how people talk about themselves. What is it like? How do you see yourself? I don't care how much you dress it up, but deep down emotionally, this is my approach with being an empowering speaker, and really talking to millions and billions, whether through digital or even in person. A lot of our men don't have an inner dialogue, about a healthy inner dialogue emotionally about themselves. So this has, what you see generationally, has groomed young men into adulthood who impulsively are not prioritizing well, which will affect their stability physically. A prison isn't a home, but for a lot of young men, due to the fact of them not knowing the importance of emotional intelligence or emotional stability, that cycles begin, the root cause of that begins at home. That begins at home. I'm grateful enough to have the awareness on even how knowing a system that was designed specifically for that, the foundations of the control and manipulation and narcissistic shit. Like the people, the energies, the powers that used to be, all of that shit was designed to literally set people up to look at prison like a home. Or, those kids are like young and taking on this narrative and have no idea of the consequences, of universal law. What you put out, you get back. And a system being in place literally designed for that. What the fuck? And this is on all levels. So for me, it's the awareness around, like, also stepping away from that people and stepping into your power has a lot to do with no longer being scapegoated, no longer people. And that's what it really hit me, where I was telling myself, yeah, I'm not finna keep. There were times where I used to be places traveling or doing something, and family members would call me in regards to, let's say, my mother or something. I don't care. I was naturally seen as like this father figure, in the sense of like authoritative figure, that I didn't realize now, even more so as I gradually learn more about myself, that I was being prepared in a more healthier way to be an authoritative figure. And that authoritative figure was first within my life. I have to first learn how to be healthy for me first. That means cutting off anything that's unhealthy, that's not encouraging, supportive, because that's where the cycle changes, is when we are enabling our children more to, more than just motivating them to go to school and go do this. Like, that system of things does not prioritize their well-being. Until we implement things that prioritize the well-being emotionally, mentally, spiritually, then how are we expected to see this play out physically with our children and with the future of this nation and so forth? How are we expected to see that shit play out? Because that's where it starts. It starts there. And so for me, I'm realizing, like, that's the impact naturally, even being away from certain environments, and even where I still got to have awareness with traveling through certain places and so forth, because everyone isn't still at that place of recognizing how much they lack accountability on how they played a role in even their life. And some of them are most likely are not aware and have gratitude for how far they've come and so forth. So with that, that's not a priority to them. So you see cycles of people still doing the same thing and so forth. It's so much. I'm realizing how much even when I say not being scapegoated no more, is not being no longer being a crutch in people's story, or like an extra in their movie, because I've decided to like prioritize and be the main character and have more awareness around the fact of how I was being used and how I was allowing myself to be used, and no longer. So that comes with no longer tolerating the bullshit, no longer tolerating the disrespect, no longer tolerating the dysfunctional patterns, no longer tolerating the abuse on all levels, whether financially, mentally, emotionally, and so forth. And that's not just from family, that's from like a country, that comes from the environment, that comes from communities where you have to actually go through things and realize, like, yo, I'm here to get what I deserve, and no one's going to deprive me of that. I'm here to get everything and more, and I have to start where my father or mother or ancestors could, the ones who did have a higher awareness on seeing my lineage, seeing the patriarchal and matriarchal evolve past, basically, the emotional unavailability, the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, and so forth. We represent that individually, as whether patriarchal or matriarchal or whatever you subscribe to. You still represent some type of being authentic or walking in integrity. You still represent that love that was never at a time embraced. You embody that. We still represent that power of being able to whether rest. That's still a power. That's still beautiful that you're able to have the opportunity to do that. And then it allows you to see these things that are laying dormant. It allows you to recognize what no longer can be hidden. And so that's the beauty, again, of prioritizing. Like, we're at a stage where going no contact with a lot of people has a lot to do with, it's just as much as I had to face my shit, you do too. You're not exempt. Whether you're a sister or brother and then you have kids, no one's exempt. This gives people the opportunity to grow, and this has given me a tremendous opportunity for my own spiritual growth, emotional, mental, and so forth. At the time, I didn't know what it was to prioritize my well-being. How else I was going to become stable? Because if I looked at other people's belief system, and then some person may have sustained it a little bit longer, But I'm sitting back and observing. I was like, there's a moment in time where I know this shit about to crumble for them too. I'm not wishing it upon them. I can recognize the patterns. I can see the shit from a mile away. That's just like trying to tell a child something you know that either they're rebellious or they're gonna have to learn through their own faults or mistakes, whatever. And then it's another thing to where we are like guardians or people are pretending as if they actually make the same mistakes or reenact certain things or did certain things that their mom and dad did. That's a whole other thing where people don't have accountability on. And so come on now. So for me, I'm realizing like that is a huge topic at hand where we have to realize like you're going to feel the need to walk into in order for you to walk into your destiny, your power, authenticity, whether you're healing from whatever situation or partnership, friendship, or whatever relationship, at a point in time you have to realize you're steering that fucking ship. And you probably allow other people to do that or allow too many people to come in and try to do that for you. To try to navigate you here or turn you this way and turn you every which way until you regain, control or, navigate your own path again. And with that, you learn that a life will have you going to places where it's uncharted territory or you have new beginnings in places where, your dreams start to unfold. Because in those spaces where people felt like they could scapegoat through you were living out unconsciously, didn't even realize their nightmares because you took on their belief systems. Dreams are a thing to be experienced. What if I told you unhealthy connections and unhealthy attachments to people, you're unconsciously living out, whether you know it or not, their nightmare because of their karma. That's one of the biggest things where I realize when people try to swoop back in or come in and say, I had to ask myself, am I responsible for this? Fuck no. Do I have to take on this? No. Do I want to get in the way of their karma? Absolutely not. Because whatever I experienced with them, whether it be months ago, years ago, and so forth, I ask myself, what is my first responsibility? Me? Then especially if I have kids, that's my second responsibility. We're not shown that and taught that. Because we're coming from generations where our mothers, let alone fathers, or let's say a lot of the matriarchal, a lot of them had to be responsible early. They were not responsible for themselves early. A lot of them had to mother, overcompensate, overgive, and they carry that. And a lot of us continue those very patterns. Like I said, I saw learned behavior young. And then I had to come to the realization, fuck, this is why I realized certain people couldn't keep nothing stable. Because they were overgiving. They didn't know balance. We're coming from generations that did not know balance. That did not know what it was to balance their inner world and their outer world. So a lot of us are that restoration for our generation and our lineage. A lot of us are that recovery from, those very things. Recovering not only just those memories, but you're recovering from those inner scars. You're recovering from those relationships that gave you outer scars, but also gave you inner ones. And I'm referencing scars as in wounds, but scars are more so like we're recognizing the scars. Let me rephrase that. Relationship that gave you wounds because of wounds that we did not see. So we reenacted it through this energetic, like karmically, energetically, like reenacting these things until it again. Have I learned this lesson? Yes, I have. And that's the end right now, Virgo season and coming into Libra, where again this balance is very important. These seasons are, have I learned it? Fuck yes. I'm telling myself, yes, I've learned. Those of you that know, like, I've learned. Virgo has taught me a lot. This practicality, this everything has taught me a lot. I'm ready to be more stable and balanced in my life. Things to be more harmonious. Look, the journey is not in vain. It's so beautiful. It's not in vain. I kid you not. It's not in vain. So yeah, it's not in vain at all. And I just want to tell myself that. I'm like, man, I do see how other people are living their life. Beautiful. At the same moment, I'm telling myself, what is balanced and stable for me? What does stability look like for me? What does harmony, peace, what does fun look like to me? You ever ask yourself that? And who and with who? And so for me, I'm like, bro, oh, gosh, whoo. So I am very honored and grateful that I have the opportunity to share these things with y'all, because the family that I came from and came through, or well, I have a tribe I created, but still, like, I had to realize, like, that was the imbalance to create balance now within myself, and however that looks with my partner, my kids, and whoever else who prioritize that. That's what community building is. I had to realize, like, whoa, building that now? Like, okay, let me see that this person prioritize that. How does their family structure, or, structure is? How do, what do they model after? They may have a belief system that, they may have everything ain't gonna just align. Hold on, let me alignment is great, because because I was about to put out words. No, it's preparing me for the alignment that I'm in, that I will and shall align with others who also have and value the same core values, or have the same core values, and also family core. I saw that book, and structure. We are rebuilding a new order of things and a new order of the world, and this is what that is, people. It cannot be ignored. When you sit back and observe and be like, wow, I'm like, what? It'd be like a miracle. I'm like, bro, this is why I was doing all of this. At a point where, when I'm looking at these things like difficulty trusting others, well, wow, where did I learn that from? I recognize my mom. I recognize people with paranoia young. Well, I wonder why they didn't trust people. Well, shit. I told y'all, like, she was shot by men. I see where her trust lies in. But as much as she, like, wanted to be with a man, it's like she wanted to be with a man, but more than being with herself. I don't know who need to hear that. You have to learn how to be with you too, rather than just being with that person. And I was telling someone who, is married, I was like, bro, it's nothing against marriage. I don't know all the details, because everyone's marriage, their perspective is different. I said, but what I've noticed is that a lot of people don't know themselves in those marriages. That's why I can recognize a high divorce rate. And that's okay, because people move on only to realize, like, it was them that they were missing out on. You have to have a more trusting and foundation with self, a loving relationship with self. Learning to love the person in the mirror, no matter how crooked my tooth is, no matter how different shades of color my gums are, how box head, my log, my all of that. But it's not just standing in love with that. You have to learn to stand in love with yourself. People say fall, I say stand. You have to stand in love with yourself. You have to stand up for yourself. So I learned this years ago from a sister. She was like, don't fall in love. She's like, stand in love. I was like, yes. Even if you feel like you got knocked down, you have to stand again. Those are boundaries. That's what being rooted is. And with that, it's like in the versions where I wanted to hate about myself, I've learned to have more empathy. And it says how empathy for the abuser believes the victim may come to sympathize with the captor's goal and causes. Let me tell you something. That's bullshit, bro. When I had to sit back and observe that I was healing from a mother or certain matriarchal figures, or even people in my life who even didn't even know that it had the same narrative, it just was a different way of they approached it. I was like, yo, nah. I have to have more empathy for me, and then have grace for me first, so I don't have this resentment, so I don't feel like this person is deserving of this how can I say this? Like when it was saying how you develop a positive attitude towards the abuser, bro, That's that like narcissistic control manipulative shit growing up that we are shattering societal norms. I'm talking about stuff where sports, coaching, fathering and mothering, we don't realize these foundations we built are literally self-abusive, self-sabotaging. And with that, I'm looking at something saying rationalizing of the abuse. Victims may downplay or explain away the abuse, even view basic acts of decency as an extraordinary kindness. What the fuck, bro? This is wild, because this is why I come on here and talk about what I went through and so forth, because I don't at all want to downplay it. When you grow up in demographics in certain places where you're growing up in dysfunctional shit, they love to, due to the dysfunction of the family, they love to, it's a downplay, they love to upplay the abuse as if it's something to be praised, but downplay your abuse or your feelings or your emotions. That cycle is done, y'all. We have to stop that, because it's not okay. It's not okay for us to continue to downplay what we've experienced, because we'll continue to prioritize and even the mental discomfort of repressing it and suppressing it some more, and develop positive emotions towards the very people where, it's okay, because again, the stigma around the anger and frustration and emotions of how you really feel and how you really felt. I had to feel that shit towards my mother. That shit was disgusting for you to treat me like that as a child. From other people I know. Recently too, like people, I was like, I really do not want to communicate with you right now. I navigated some shit to where like I'm healing from you when I don't even have to tell you. I don't have to tell you. I'm just having to use these books and this platform and whatever else to realize like I don't owe you nothing. I owe it to myself to try to be better for me and my well-being, so that I can be able to show up for myself and also show up for the ones that are in my inner circle. And sometimes when you're in something, that can be the very person that you're with or even have children by. I don't ever want to, we should never downplay what we've experienced with people, because when children are looking, you are unconsciously teaching them a pattern of believing that they should downplay the treatment that they may or experience that they may have subconsciously absorbed, and then assuming that when they get of age, this pattern is okay for them. Absolutely not. No. Because what are we teaching kids to be, to not be appreciated, not that their emotions and how they feel is not appreciated? I came from that. No. We are building foundations where people do appreciate us. We're building structures, emotionally, mentally, and so forth, and even, environments, communities, structures. When you look at this country, it doesn't appreciate people that are darker. When you look at the foundations reek of self-hatred, of self. When you look at corporations and business, it reeks of how they value women. There's not an appreciation towards the anatomy and autonomy of humanity or people or women or people of a darker shade. These are, I can go, there's different perspectives or different levels and so many things I can go in. So again, you have people in certain demographics or certain people, even such as myself, that have developed these very Stockholm syndrome towards a fucking system, a fucking people, whether they know it or not. Because when you have a people, let's say not all, but people of a lighter shade downplay what people have went through in this country, and then you have people that are darker, are confused about how they should show up. They feel a sense of embarrassment because they're not showing up in a certain way for people who pretend to be more superior because of or have this superior complex or God complex because of what they have, and have built the system around an inability to continue to be passive but not emotionally intelligent. Let's talk about it. That's a system built around PTSD. A system that's crumbling around everything that literally grooms or breeds self-sabotage. And now that we're recognizing how much we self-sabotage ourselves and no longer will continue to blame other people for once, where's the accountability of our own fucking anger that no one controls, of our own emotions that no one controls, especially us as in this adult age, us as millenniums, seeing why, paying attention why this generation are acting the way they act, because they're carrying intergenerationally the same shit that we either acknowledge, have negative feelings towards, and they too carry it. So with that, we don't even, due to the fact of how people don't have emotional, empathy anymore, they don't see compassion. I do though. I see the youth. I see compassion. I see the compassion. Instead of keep trying to motivate them, people who want to motivate people to keep, be passive and be more successful, bullshit. I'm calling bluff. How about now we implement something where I'm here to empower more of an empathy for self, so we can throw away this trash ass society and these leaders or whomever it is who want to represent continue to be more passive and building more of trying or desperately trying to attempt to build more of a society where people don't prioritize their well-being and their individualism and how it's interconnected to all of us and how it connects to all of us. So with that, there will be no more confusion or feeling like, or guilt around being yourself. No longer suppressing and depressing the fact of you have to realize, like, you're not just healing from your, like, with your own internal wounds, but the very people, the society, the leadership, and so forth, who have also played a role in preying on your childhood woundings, or enabling through media, through whatever it is, you're feeding you this narrative of not prioritizing your well-being, your importance of who you are individually, what you came here to do, the mission that you have to focus more on. And so with that, you're talking about a huge shift in turn of events to where you begin to process those very things that society or people want you to tell you, oh, just, it's okay, put it in the past. Put where? I'm looking at a lot of y'all been carrying it. You keep talking about forgive and forget, or forgive and no. How about we forgive ourselves and recognize I don't have to fuck with you no more. I can go create a life outside of that. Whether that be I don't have to fuck with you or this country or these people who want to continue this, and I can just sit back and eat my popcorn and live my life abundantly and prosperly and peacefully while I sit here and be like, I ain't even gotta tell you I told you so. I just know you will spin the block eventually. When at a time where I was being honest and authentic and doing something that was never prioritized and walking in integrity, where you wanted to become my enemy, now you want to be my ally. That's my choice this time. For a lot of us this time, our sovereignty is our choice. It's your choice. It was never nobody else. It's fucking wild how you can have a place to try to determine someone else's fucking freedom, someone else's birthright, someone else's like way of being, where the source and the divine, especially the divine mother, is going to show the world like that the illusion of control has been a bit, even through fear in itself. Like, what? We are not even born with that shit. We come from a power of, like, the thing about rising in frequency is realizing, like, there is no more scarcity around, like, death, oh gosh, or physical. So what? Everyone gonna transition, everyone gonna leave. Kids don't come in with that. They're the most fearless until they're tainted, until they're, like, tampered with and all kind of bullshit. But those that are recovering their essence, their sovereignty, their soul's expression, like, I'm like, bro, you can't make me be around you. You can't make me do shit. And so with that, that's the importance of, instilling in our children, like, keep that soul's expression. That's who you authentically are. Be who you are. Love who you are. But when you're taught the opposite, how can you expect people not to act the way they act? They don't even know what they're doing sometimes. It's just like an undeveloped child, or a child that never got the nurturing and support and so many things. There, you see a world that's imbalanced, that do not prioritize harmony or peace, or things that where people can actually live amongst each other. And that's what you recognize even in childhood. I'm like, damn, these boys can't stand each other, but then they come around and pretend. I'm not finna pretend with none of y'all. I'm not finna pretend. My own children don't even pretend. My daughter tell me, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like this. Or her emotions are. If children will sit there and tell you in those moments that they don't like this, why the fuck is there so much emphasis on manipulating them to do otherwise? Y'all sick. Y'all fucking mentally ill. You look at your leadership or whatever. If you don't think that these are, spiritual warfare or whatever, y'all got to be sick. You're disgusting inside to honestly think that you have to control a child, or have to control even something that eventually will backfire, and it's backfiring already, even more rapidly. This is the Phoenix Rising. This is the rebirth of everything, and through the fire. We already had the water birth, and through the fire is something different. Everyone won't survive that internal fire, that evolution, that fire of, how can I express this? It's like that rebirth of that phoenix. That everyone will reach that pinnacle, I should say. So with that, that's why I express to people, everyone's not willing to walk away, to be reborn completely through their emotions, through their mental, through their spiritual. And so it plays out physically, just so they can be within themselves at a place of stability on all levels. Everyone's not willing to do that. Everyone's not really willing to be reborn through that. And their tactics, whether emotion manipulation or attacks, or whatever it is you want to call it, that shit don't have no more power, because that's the illusion of false empowerment, is fear. And so when that no longer can be used, they can either face their fears personally, or and the only way they can do that is through love. That's the beauty of all this shit. You got to be able to love the fact of how all the things that were sent to destroy you were being reborn through. And that is the healing journey, where you will continuously go through this and be like, I thought I had this figured out. No. Again, one of my greatest fears of now learning at 35 is the awareness around what vices or what warfare that I had to realize that wanted to keep me so attached to not only the dysfunctional family dynamic, but to even a narrative of this world and so forth. What was that stronghold? And even recognize relationships, I was like, whoa, this person's core values and belief systems, now that I sit and recognize, I'm like, yeah, the only thing we really had in common was trauma. And we were supposed to mirror each other back that. And then, respectfully, I love myself more to even think that I gotta tolerate this bullshit. And that's where that's just like a child. A child is going to naturally rebel when it doesn't feel like it's being loved, embraced, appreciated, celebrated. And we are those children. And to Source, the Divine Mother, Divine Father, Most High, we are those children. So if you ever think, I don't give a fuck who you are in the physical, let's talk about the physical aspect. If you ever think that you're going to play with me or anything connected to me and believe that there isn't something higher that's protecting me since a child, and then protecting what's connected to me, fuck around and find out. That's all I can say. That's on you. That's on you. And that's the beauty of what people don't realize. Even what you didn't see in the spiritual aspect, all shall see. that all sees, the Most High sees all. So I'm sitting here like, bro, don't ever think your mama and anybody, even yourself, got away with anything. Cause listen, that's why it's so good in these days to keep your heart light. Keep your heart light. Don't do what they did. Keep your heart light. Maneuver through this shit. Keep your heart light. Keep your tongue on better things. Love on yourself. Nurture yourself. Find your balance. Find your what brings you internally joy, fun, and so forth. Find that for you, and then naturally it will weed out the rest. Or sometimes you have to step in and let people know, like, all right, go ahead, man. You can have it. You got it. Your drama, save it for your mama or somebody else. But yeah, just know that there comes a process where in healing, you do have to step away from these very people or places and environments and realize, like, that's a part of your recovery. That's a part of your restoration. That's a part of balance. That's a part of truth. And some people have a difficulty trying to fight with that because due to so much of unhealthy attachments, they feel like they suffer through trying to let go of that instead of allowing it and surrendering. And with that, again, that's beyond our control. Some people love the dysfunction. They don't even recognize it. That's mental illness. Some people here are actually programmed to actually create that for other people. They actually are they've become so succumbed or consumed by so much stuff, and you're gonna be able to see it clearly and realize, like, wow, I see why now I was removed, or I see why now I was divinely guided and protected from that connection and so forth. I see why now, like, whoa, how somebody, you distance yourself and you were here about something you don't even be looking for. You know what? I'm not even surprised. Or you'll get premonition or vision or something like, yep, stay away, far away. And so with that, again, y'all take care of yourself, man. It's okay to heal and heal from people. And with that, that's gonna come up. It seems like a push-pull, but what is more of a priority? Your well-being or theirs? And what are you giving? Are you being poured into, or are you overcompensating? Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.